Hey guys, welcome to another Man on Second podcast. I'm Mike Sumbig, joined as always by Joe Frisaro, the headmaster of Man on Second. Thank you guys for tuning in. For the first time, we are live on the 5 Reasons Sports Network YouTube page. Usually you could find us streaming live on our own YouTube page, but if you guys have missed it, we have started a partnership with the 5 Reasons Sports Network. So now we will be doing our media content on their YouTube page. So for the first time ever, we're streaming live right now. So you can subscribe to that on YouTube at 5 Reasons Sports on YouTube. And you can still follow all of us on Man on Second. And we're also still streaming live right now on my Twitter page at DutchBeak. Joe, we have an exciting one today.
Yeah. Well, they're always now. I mean, we got a lot of good things going, with our partner at 5 Reasons, and we're going to finish the season strong with our Marlins, Rays, baseball, Florida centric, and more. We're just going to be the most complete, baseball podcast around, and we're building a baseball media company that's multi-layered. Obviously, the Marlins are a big part of it, and we'll probably jump right in with them.
Yep, and with the Marlins, there's 17 games to go. We're in the stretch run here in the MLB. September baseball is always the best baseball, but right now for the Marlins, it's the time where they figure out some things. And luckily, they've found some guys that have been able to produce lately. Some guys that was able to get their opportunities through trades or injuries with Bryan De La Cruz and Jesus Sanchez. Both of them making the most of their opportunities. Where do you see them now? Where's their outlook now going into next season?
Yeah, I just wrote about them the other day on the manonsecondbaseball.com site. Basically, I'm calling it like their new outfield. Obviously, right now, Jorge Alfaro a little bit with a little leg injury or whatever. But he's been playing outfield. But we got to ask Mike. Let's look at De La Cruz and Sanchez, who are two pleasant surprises and two reasons to watch right now. And, we'll throw that question out. Are these guys the front runners to be in the starting lineup in 2022 in the outfield? Have they shown enough? Are we buying into small sample sizes? And I'll get your thoughts and I'll give you mine.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like for sure with someone like De La Cruz, who's I feel like a different makeup in terms of how he got here than Jesus Sanchez. So I feel like both of them have definitely played themselves on the next year's team. I think for De La Cruz, it's a little bit different because, he really didn't have this profile of, this big name guy coming in. The Marlins got him from the Garcia trade, I believe, right?
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, the Garcia
Astros,
trade
yeah.
From the Astros. So it wasn't this top prospect like Jesus was, but I definitely think he has guaranteed himself the fourth man, at least minimum fourth man outfielder next year. And I think you have to have Sanchez in your lineup every day next year.
Yeah,
and he's earned that right.
Yeah, let's start with Bryan De La Cruz, who's been fun to watch. And you look at this guy, and he comes in, he looks the part. He completely looks like he's up to the task. The swing is good. He's athletic. He can play the field. He can run a little bit. Plays all 3 outfield spots. I still think he's a little better on the corners than in center. They may think otherwise, but some of the routes seem a little shaky. But the bat is what everyone seems to be excited about. Good at bats. I know the K rate probably a little higher than we'd like, but overall, he's productive. He doesn't seem overmatched, and this is a real quickie for Yimi Garcia to get Bryan De La Cruz from the Astros, who right now do not have a very good farm system.
Yeah,
so the Astros also are a team that don't have many scouts. They kind of gutted their scouting department because they're almost, I'm not going to say 100% analytics, but they go strictly, heavily by, I should say, analytics. And just by not having maybe some eyeballs on this player, and maybe the numbers were telling them one thing, but the Marlins may have found something here as an everyday caliber. And the beauty of it is, I think he's 24.
Yeah, still pretty young.
And still young. He may turn 25 before next season, but that's still young. And he's got 3 option years. So even if he's, just struggling mightily in spring training, they were no risk of losing him. So you know,
Turns 25 in December.
Yeah, only win-win for Brian De La Cruz. And if you look at the the numbers, kind of speaking for himself. I know he got. I'm looking at my stats here, and keep in mind Marlins play at 1:00 today, so we could see him a little earlier. 41 games, 336, batting average, obviously in 153 plate appearances. We don't know if that's going to be sustainable, but the 136 weighted run created plus, the 368 WOBA. This guy's been highly productive. And I think what De La Cruz has done is basically made, Magneuris Sierra and Lewis Brinson expendable.
Yeah.
And now we'll speak with Jesus Sanchez. And in 50, now I've always liked Sanchez. I think he's an exciting player. I don't know if he's going to be an all-star caliber guy, but there's certainly power. There's a very impactful bat. Obviously, there's high K rate. The knock I heard on from some scouts early in the year was the breaking pitches. I think he's seen a little bit more now. So keep an eye in these final 17 games, how he handles the off speed, especially breaking pitches. But we know if he gets a hold of a fastball, he doesn't get cheated on his swings and he gets the ball a long way. And lefty power plays better at Lone Depot Park anyway. So a lot to like about Sanchez. Now, a little confusion. Fangraphs has him with one option remaining for next year. I'm not sure if that's accurate, whatever. But even if there's no options left for Jesus Sanchez next year, he's in the same boat as Sierra. I mean, they carried Sierra all year. Strictly a backup defensive replacement, 10th inning, runner on second type of guy. So Sanchez clearly has probably played himself into, unless you can do better in the offseason by either a trade that services or a free agent target, he's probably your right fielder. Right now you have to pencil him in, and I think he's earned that, or at least earned that look. And so two exciting guys with those two for sure, I think, mean these final 17 games for Brinson and Sierra are try to build the value and see what, I'm not, others love to just cut players for nothing around here. They think that the system's so loaded, we could just get rid of everybody for nothing. I'm not in that camp. If you could trade a guy, you trade the guy, even if it's for organizational depth. So I'll let that crowd just cut everybody. But for me, I'm looking for value in players, not looking to discard players. And that's, I think, the smart way to turn over and to supplement your roster as you build this thing going forward.
And speaking of this, it's going to be an interesting conversation. I know fans probably don't like when we bring this up with Sandy Alcantara because, it's another bad year. He's another year closer to free agency, one less year of control. And you start to wonder with those timelines, are the Marlins going to compete in his timeline? Yep. And he's had a great year. He's going to probably pitch 200 innings, another great season for Sandy. What should they do? Because that decision is coming up. Within about 2 months, they're going to have to start really going on a decision on what to do with Sandy Alcantara, whether it's trade him, whether let him play out, or, finally extend him. Where do you think this is heading towards now when 16 games left in the season and the decision's coming up?
Yeah, and you noted it right, Mike. There's three choices you can go. One, you could extend him or look to extend. Two, you can trade. And three, he's going in next year, will be his first year of arbitration. You could just sign him for next year, go 1 year at a time. He's not a free agent until, I think, let me just quickly check the notes. Was it 2025? So that's still a ways away. There's no urgency to sign him long term. What's disappointing to me as a Marlin fan, if I'm a Marlin fan, is if this should have been a no-brainer. Extension should be the call, and it should be the no-brainer. Now, if this team wasn't over 20 games under 500 and about to get eliminated, which they would have been eliminated in any other division by now, they didn't close the gap enough this year to make this a no-brainer. Like they weren't knocking on the door with the Braves. They've been out of it really since June. You could sit around, but when you haven't touched 500 or above it all year, we could sugarcoat all the time how great certain moments have been, but it's been a bad year if you're looking at big picture. So the fact that they didn't do that makes you have to listen to a trade. And I'm going to bring this topic up. let's go back. I'm going to go back to 2013, 2014. Right before, the Marlins broke it up. In 13, they had the bad year. Obviously, they brought up Jose. That was a good point, but they lost 100 games. 14, they made some strides. Stanton got hurt in 14. Remember, he got hit in the face. He was having an MVP caliber year. The Boston Red Sox, among many teams, were all over the Marlins trying to get Giancarlo Stanton, a very young Giancarlo in year 3 or 4 of his career. And Stanton probably wins the MVP if he doesn't get hit in the face by Mike Fiers. He still led the league with 37 homers. After that season, the Marlins signed Stan to the 13 years, $325 million, which at the time, record deal.
Yeah.
Well, if the Marlins had listened or seriously considered with the Red Sox, they could have had in a deal, from what I've been told, Mookie Betts and Xander Bogaerts would have been part of a package that would have headed to Miami back in about 2014 before the 15 season. Mm-hmm. So obviously we don't those names are being discussed in a trade for Stanton if and more would have been coming to Miami's way for the rising young premier power hitter of the generation. And we're going to talk about Stanton a little bit later, as he approaches benchmarks. But if for all those who are just don't listen at all to potential talks with Sandy, keep that in mind. If you don't talk, you don't know what you might have. And now I can't sit around and say which teams would be a match. I could bring in a Mookie Betts or whatever, or if that would even fly these days. Because back then, Mookie Betts was a 5th rounder in 2011. He's 29. He'll be 29 in October, but he was a 5th rounder at the time. And Bogaerts also will be 29 in October, and he made his debut in 13. Mookie Betts made his debut in 14. So they were prospects, Mm-hmm. Now, the key is, do we trust the front office? And I know a lot of people are skeptical, but that's why you have a front office. You have to trust the front office. You don't just sign somebody, just to appease. Now, I think another thing that you have to look with Sandy is he's certainly doing his part. And his price tag is only going up. And now if you extend him and you're out of it in July next year, what do? Do you look to move him or whatnot? So I personally think there's going to be, I'm listening. If I'm the Marlins, I'm listening. And then if there's something that makes, and you're blown away, you have to consider it. But I think the pressure is going to be on. I think the public's going to want something to hang their hat on. So I think they're going to make efforts to sign Sandy long-term. I think he's certainly earned that and would be nice to receive that. And if it falls short, they may just do what they did with Stanton and even back to the days of Miguel Cabrera, just ride him into year 1 of arbitration and see what happens. I think trade is probably the third thing on their mind.
Yeah, but if you look around the league, there's some teams. One team that really sticks my eye on a potential trade, which we heard rumors about the Marlins making a big deal with them, is the Angels. I think that would be a perfect match made in heaven team to trade Sandy to.
Yeah, because there makes sense with whether it's a Joe Adell or Brandon Marsh. They got players like that could improve your offense. Now you're moving your ace, but that's part of a deal where you're getting 2 or 3 other either big leaguers or high end prospects. So I think you got to listen. You got to listen, and you got to be realistic. Where's this team going into 2022? Because everything I'm hearing from what everybody says on TV, it's just hope. We're all hoping. But you got, you just can't. You're not owed a winning season because you didn't have one. You're not owed all your pitching being healthy because you think it should. You got to be smart, and you got to take from a front office standpoint, you got to take the emotion out of it. And you got to make the best move for your organization. And, we'll talk about the Rays in a little bit. They're not afraid to move the parts when the time is right.
Yeah, I mean, diving right into the Rays, last time we talked about them, we were very giddy. They were really hot. They've started a little bit slide, but they still have a pretty comfortable lead up in first place at about 9 games right now. But they're 5-5 in their last 10. And unfortunately, the injury bug has hit them at the worst time. Hopefully, some of these big guys, the Wander Francos, the Chris Archers, the McCann Hands, will come back right before the playoffs. But the injury bug is getting them at the wrong time. And right now they have, like I just mentioned, three big guys going on to the IL. And it starts to get the question, do they have enough depth in the major league lineup, in the starting pitching, to compete this season in the playoffs and get returned back to the World Series?
Yeah, I mean, everyone I listen to on radio and so forth, that they seem to want them out, and they think that because they don't like that bullpenning aspect of it, and they question whether they have enough starting pitching, and that's valid. It's certainly valid. They're a team that bullpens its way, and losing McClanahan, he has a lower back tightness now. He's made 22 starts. He's rookie status, 110 in the third innings. Probably is your game one starter for Tampa Bay.
Mm-hmm.
Low back tightness, but it sounds like they're optimistic that by the end of the year he will be back. And if they're just gearing him up and resting him for the postseason, okay, you can live with that. Archer's injury is bothersome, even though Archer hasn't pitched a lot this year. That hip discomfort, I think he's only thrown like 19 or third innings all year. And like
I believe that's the second time he's on the IL for that reason too. I believe, right?
Yeah. So the thing is, even if you could bottle up a Chris Archer and get one healthy month out of him, or give you a couple of weeks in the playoffs, that might be all you need to get to where you want to go. So it is taxing on them. They got Nick Anderson, the former Marlin. He's come back to help the bullpen.
That's big for them.
Drew Rasmussen has been, throwing well in the rotation. He, is part of last night's shutout against Toronto, going 5 innings, but that's what they got, a bunch of 5-inning guys. And it's hard to win 11 or more, or whatever it is. I think it's 11 games to win the World Series in the playoffs, just, with 4 or 5 innings from your rotation. And so that's something to watch for. And then Wander Franco, obviously, sensational rookie shortstop, hamstring, looks like end of the month. So there is optimism he will be ready to go for the postseason. But I can tell you this much, 9 games up, and they're lucky that the Blue Jays have come in and started beating up on some people that have kind of prevented anyone from making a serious run. If I'm the Rays, I want to clinch as soon as possible, hope to get home field throughout the playoffs and be able to rest some of these guys. But their offense has been really good, and their positional flexibility can probably cover up for Franco for a bit. But if you want to win it all, you need your highest end impact guys in the playoffs.
Yeah. And I mean, they have a pretty comfortable lead right now for home field all the way through at least the World Series. They probably don't have it for the World Series, but throughout the World Series, they have a comfortable lead for. But we talked about it, the bullpenning. That's their bread and butter. They showed they can do it last year, but is that something that, can only happen every once in a while? Like it was magic in a bottle, lightning in a bottle. Can they bullpen their way to the World Series again?
You say yes because they prove everyone wrong all the time anyway. It's not ideal, because it's why you want that horse. That's why Max Scherzer's on the Dodgers. That's why you want these horses that are going to go into the 8th and throw a potential complete game in the postseason and give your bullpen a day off. It just depends. If you gotta match your way from the 5th inning and go, 4 to 5 innings a night with your bullpen, yes, you could get by if your matchup against your opponent is favorable. But attrition does become an issue eventually, and it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard, but for our Rays followers, and we're going to build that audience, and we're going to make more, rounded baseball fans in South Florida. If there's a silver lining in a couple of years, the Rays are going to have, because they got prospects in their system, they're going to have frontline starting pitching that this isn't going to be an issue in about 2 or so years for Tampa Bay, because they're going to have some high-end starting pitching that's going to make them a little more of a traditional team and not having to mix and match. But for 2021, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard for them to go all the way, I think, with, if your bullpen has to throw that many innings.
Yeah, and I think they can do it. I mean, like we said, the Rays never seem to shock us, and they always find a way to pull something out. But I want to give a reminder or a heads up to some of the new listeners that we have, especially now since we're streaming live on the 5 Reasons Sports Network YouTube page, is we are not just a Marlins-based podcast. We show all of Florida, whether it's high school, college, guys that have affiliation with Florida, dudes like Jonathan India on the Reds, and all these South Florida-based players that play on different teams. We're going to be covering all of them. And we also like to touch on some guys that played for the Marlins former Marlins, like Giancarlo Stanton, who I loved. I don't know if you were watching the Mets-Yankees game a couple nights ago. I loved that little fiery moment between him and Lindor. It got me excited. It seems like Stanton is fully back. It seems like he's kind of getting back to that Marlins days, or the first 2 years on the Yankees days as well, where he had 2 really good seasons, but then the last 2 couldn't get on the field. But he hit number 28 last night. He's almost at 30, another 30 home run season, and he's at 340 career home runs. And Joe, I think this is incredible because he hasn't played a lot. Like if you look throughout his career, given all the seasons that he's played, to be at 340 and he hasn't played, he's missed almost a combined like 2 seasons, I believe, combined games. It's kind of incredible that he's at 340.
Yeah, I mean, he's always been, if he can stay healthy, And yes, I did see that game the other night, Mike, on a Sunday night. And to be honest, that was probably, to me as a fan watching a baseball game, the most exciting game I've seen since 2019, because keep in mind, there was no fans last year. Even there was a little bit in the World Series, which gave a little bit of fun to it. But that Citi Field, that felt like, I was like, whoa, thank you. We got a baseball playoff type atmosphere with intensity, and Stanton, of all people, who seems to be more, kind of more mild-mannered. You don't see a lot of emotion from him on the field. For him he became a Yankee in their eyes, like a Yankee fan favorite, after taking on the Met guys. But unfortunately for him, he comes up with a big homer to tie it, and then they give it away. It always seems like his moments are always kind of on the losing end. But 28 homers, and when he gets 2 more, which we anticipate he will, that'll be his 6th 30-homer season already. Keep in mind, he'll be 32 in November, so he's still young enough. We just had an ex-Marlin, I know it's painful, Miguel Cabrera, celebrating number 500. Is Stanton the next best, or the closest possibility of all active players to get to to get to 500 homers?
I would think so. And I want to ask you this. Would he already be there if he would have been healthy throughout his whole career?
Oh, man. Oh, gosh. You would have to figure he'd be about, I would think at least he'd be at about 420.
That's insane.
Yeah.
To do that at 32 years old.
Yeah, and the thing about him is he's a great player. He's great, and we've always, I've always been a big fan of his, and would stick up for him a lot, because the talent is off the charts good. His impactfulness is off the charts, and I don't like to quit on that. And I wrote this down, Mike. And obviously 2017 is last year in Miami when he hit the 59 homers. Then he followed that up in New York with a 30-something homer season. Those 2 years combined, his first year in New York in 18, and his last year in Miami, 97 homers, 225 runs scored, and 232 RBIs.
Yeah,
that's a 2-year window for this guy. And when he's hot, the homers come in bunches. And it's playing in Yankee Stadium. If he stays healthy, stay healthy. And I think next year, when the DH is probably universal, so he doesn't come out of the lineup, more regularly, or is defensively replaced in National League parks like he was this year, as long as he stays on the field, I wouldn't be surprised if he's in 6 or so years and reaching the 500 club.
Oh, me neither. I think. Yeah, if he stays relatively healthy, it's guaranteed. It's kind of a shame that we only got to see 40 games out of him the past 2 seasons before this one. It's just, he's played. I could do this Giancarlo talk all day, because I think his career is incredible given what's happened in it. Like, he's only played 150 games 3 times.
Yeah, and that's the thing. He threw Yeah, he threw in what was it in 17? He was 159, and then 18 it was like 158.
Yeah.
So when he's on the field, and I know his goal in 17 was to play all 162. I think he only got out of the game just I think Donnie just gave him the day off or whatever, just as a precaution. But the goal was pretty much to play every game because he's a prideful guy. He he always heard, he can't stay in the lineup, obviously, and good for him. 340 is a good number for him, but an amazing career. Obviously, we would have liked to seen it play out differently here, and him being the face of this franchise and help grow it. And I'm sure if we tie this back into Sandy and those who want Sandy to stay, this market's starved. Clearly, we're starved for who is our Derek Jeter, who is our, whatever player, Mike Trout, that the Miami fans feel is their guy. And I'm not even sure the way the sport's headed, do we want to build that way, or do you happy with building a Tampa Bay way where your team is more overshadows and the players you get are the face, the team is the face and the winning is the face over an emotional attachment to one player?
I don't know. I feel like they both have their, because you ask that and it's like, Miami is known for the stars, no matter what. So I think the thing with this fan base is, we're from Miami and we know stars and we've had stars even in the down years. Besides the past 3 years, and I guess you can say Alcantara's a star, but he's not on the level of fame that like Stanton was. South Florida, even the Marlins have always had these big name stars. So I feel like we're always starred for those like Giancarlo Stantons, the Hanley Ramirez's, the Miguel Cabreras, these household names, best famous Gary Sheffield, most famous players in baseball. But maybe the formula to winning is being more like the Rays and not really having your Giancarlo Stanton, but you have 10 really good players who contribute every day to a win.
Yeah, I mean, look at the Angels. They have Mike Trout, the biggest name in the sport, who hasn't played much, and he's replaced by Shohei Ohtani, the biggest name in the sport. And guess what? They're not going to the playoffs, and they're not winning. And to lock them up could be $800 million in 2 players, at some point. And you got to ask yourself, which is, and I that's kind of, if I have a criticism of the Marlins, yes, Derek Jeter has changed the culture. He's improved the farm system. But what is the real direction? Is it going to be more of a streamlined, more fiscally, conservative in terms of giving big contracts out and just going with guys that fit a profile more than, which is ironic because Derek Jeter is the most iconic.
Yeah.
He's one of the all-time Yankees, the most like, and we congratulated Derek at our last show, and he had the ceremony over, I think it was a week ago today, actually. Where Derek spoke and did a marvelous job in his induction, and you could see, being a famous Yankee, it's interesting. It'd be interesting. We'll throw it out to our fans as well. What do we want? We want to win with interchangeable parts, or do we want to win sometimes and maybe not win, but we can buy a jersey and know that we could wear for 10 years and not have the guy you're wearing the Stanton jersey, and now when he this 2012 Stanton jersey, so it's something that baseball is, as the history is, you embrace your stars and your guys, but the formula now clearly is interchangeable parts. And I will say this: I think it's easier to root for a hitter than a pitcher because it's just although you never. As good as Sandy is, it's, you never know when you might break down.
Yeah. And they don't have the power of playing every single day.
Yeah, they're not always there in the lineup. Exactly.
Yeah. But Joe, we got to do this. We got to do our little rundowns of both the AL and the NL East. We'll start off with the NL East to wrap up the show. The Braves, there's only like about 17 games left. They have a 4.5 game lead on Philly, 5.5 on the Mets. The Mets looked like for a second after like a big weekend versus Yankees that they might find their way back into it, but now they've lost 2 in a row, and it probably seems like they have made their bet on the season, and it looks like the Braves will probably wrap up this division relatively soon.
Yeah, it's interesting. I did some math here. That's why I'm looking down because I want to get these right. The Braves are 76 and 67. They have 19 games to go.
Mm-hmm.
If they go 10 and 9, they are 86 and 76. I thought at least 88 to 90 wins was going to take the division. Now it looks like 86 could be the low bar. And keep that in mind. The Phillies, like you noted, they're 4.5 out. They're 72 and 72. They have 18 to go. They have to go 14 and 4 if the Braves go 10 and 9 to get to 86 wins. And the Mets, with 16 to go, have to go 14 and 2 to get to 86. So just barring a Braves collapse, the NL East is pretty much won right now by the Atlanta Braves. And it's amazing. It's been a terrible year for the NL East. No sugarcoating it. I guess their hope is the Braves don't go 10 and 9, that they go more in the light of 8 and 11 or 7 and 12. But if it's going to have to take that, then the division's going to be won with 84, 85 games. You're going to have a lot of people just screaming about, and who did the Mets lose to? They come back, they lose to the Cardinals, and at a division team in the, fighting them for a playoff spot, trying to get wild card. And the NL East keeps losing every time they don't play the NL East. So it's been a bad year all around. And so just kind of did my math there. And now let's hit on the AL East.
And AL East, this is, in terms of competition, one of the most fun divisions in baseball right now because, Tampa has a 9-game lead on all 3 of the teams, funny enough, on Yankees, Toronto, and Boston. Tampa has a 9-game lead on all of them. But all 3 of those teams are tied for the last wild card spot. So this is going to be an interesting last 17. I mean, Toronto has played incredible lately. They've been really fun all season, but as of late, they've been insane. You have to give them the upper hand, I think. Boston, they had their COVID issues. New York just seems to be stumbling. They're 3-7 in their last 10. So I definitely think Toronto is going to come out with the wild card, and Boston and New York will probably fight for that second spot. But this is going to be really fun.
Yeah, and we discussed that a week ago that they're making. I think, first of all, I think the AL East has supplanted the NL West as the best division of baseball. The fact that the 4th team, because Colorado and Arizona are dragging up behind in the NL West. Only Baltimore and the poor Orioles are just getting abused by these guys. But as you note, the Rays have already won 90 games. They're 90 wins already with 17 to go. Yeah. So they could win 100. That means, like you say, Toronto smoking hot. That offense is fun. They got, man on second favorite, Bo Bichette from Florida. I've already interviewed Bo. I'm all part of the Bo Flow and all the other good stuff. So I'm kind of pulling for them to do it. Also, we love Stanton. We want to see the Yankees do well. And the Red Sox are the Red Sox, I think, of those 3, who I probably got, either New York or Toronto, depending on how that starting pitching is going to hold up. And even Yankees bullpen's a little scary as well because they're going to have to outslug people. And then the Reds, I kind of got, like you say, I think I got Toronto and New York in that order, and I got Boston probably finishing 4th in this division. And that might be a half game out, finishing in 4th place. That would be unbelievable.
Me too, but I would still like to see somehow they've hung around. Don't know how. Minus 60 run differential. But Seattle only 3 games back. I would like to see them maybe take a quick little run at this.
Yeah. I just want these races to be fun because it just creates good drama for us to watch as the season ends, and baseball needs it. You need the tight pennant and the playoff races. Would have been nice to have that extra playoff round that was voted against. Maybe next year we'll see what they do when the CBA finally gets hammered out to whatever it looks like. But yeah, as of now, NL East, or excuse me, AL East is monster, and it's kind of must-watch TV, and that's what I'm doing at night. Maybe, and I'm hoping the baseball fan hasn't, and the Marlin fan, if you've checked out, and you're not watching anymore, you moved on to the Dolphins. We're gonna be watching the games for you to fill you in.
Yeah.
If you've already cashed out. But we're looking for fun stuff, and I'm watching, Marlin games, flipping the channel to about 6 others, and it's all good stuff. And it looks like baseball is kind of going to come back, and these races are going to be fun, and then that'll lead us into the postseason. And we're looking to line up some guests as we get closer to that as well.
Yeah, we have a lot of exciting stuff coming for you guys. Now that we're with the 5 Reasons Sports Network, we're glad to be able to expand our audience to their existing baseball fan audience, and hopefully brand new fans from all over the country, but specifically our Florida market. We'll be tuning more towards the playoffs probably within the next couple of weeks as the Marlins season officially winds down, and probably not going to be much to talk about in their major league team until the winter meetings time. So we're excited to talk playoff baseball and to see these AL and NL pennant races come together. Joe, another great show. We appreciate you, as always, for bringing us this knowledge and all these stats. It's really great to listen to you. To the fans, we appreciate you tuning in on our new network and finding us there. You can still find us on Twitter at DutchBeak, at the Man on Second site, Twitter page, and you can also still see our stuff on our YouTube if you want, but our main stuff, content-wise, video-wise, is going to be on the 5 Reasons Sports YouTube page, where you can subscribe at 5 Reasons Sports. We'll link it on Twitter. Appreciate you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next week.